Okay, do you want to do the little song?
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
There we go. Welcome to edition 99 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have a mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
It's true. I have been recommended a TV show from my friend who's a sort of connoisseur of trash television.
Oh, yeah.
Called Love After Lockup, I think.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of this?
No.
It's a show about... Oh, excuse me.
It's either about people who've been going out with a prisoner and now they're out, or people who've got rid of a storage unit.
It's about people who, write to them in prison and then get together with them afterwards.
Oh, let me guess, it's not what they thought.
Well, I said that. I was like, so it's just awful. And they said there's an interesting gender divide in it, that a lot of the women go on to have very beautiful relationships.
Yeah, okay.
But it's because there's a mad stat about... There's a brilliant book called Jailbirds about British prisons, and there's some great sort of stats in it. And there's a very high percentage of women, like very, very high, in British prisons who are there because they're committing a crime on behalf of a man. So if they go to prison and that man is then removed from their life for whatever reason, it means that they have a much greater chance that, the reoffending rate is much lower, etc., etc.
Yeah, but we don't want the nice stories. We want the people that have gone out with a nutter.
We do want that, and I think there's plenty of those, Rachel. Absolutely plenty.
I think Charles Bronson's going to be released, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes. I bet the woman that's married him's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I thought he was staying in. Oh, I've got to get stuff ready for him. I've got to make room in the wardrobe for him now.
Yeah, I don't imagine he's an easy person to live with either.
Well, I just think when someone's been so institutionalised for so long.
Yeah, insisting on having a toilet put in their bedroom so he can shit in the same room.
This is what I'm used to.
Knocking down the stud wall into the ensuite so it's all open plan.
So it must be difficult to adjust in many instances.
I also watched for the first time yesterday something called 90 Day Fiance.
Oh, yeah, people will watch that. I have not got involved with that. What's that like? Sarah Prophet loves that.
Yeah, I can see why. I'm only a couple of I think I've done a couple of episodes of the first series, and I mean, every person is a walking red flag, is what I would say quite confidently. And my hope is that sort of women in emerging economies who are sort of getting married to quite creepy, controlling American men absolutely fleece them for all they have. That's what I hope, but we'll see.
I just don't want to watch anything, me. I'm fucking done with it.
You're done with culture, mate. Tapping out.
That's culture, is it?
Yes.
Fucking 90 Day Fiance.
Content? I don't know what you call it.
Oh, darling, have you seen a marvellous new programme? It's 90 Day Fiance. Very well put together.
Okay. Can I also make a bid for, you might like this one, I watched one ep of it because I really wanted to watch the person that was on it. It's called Help, My House is Haunted, celebrity version. Now, whilst I was watching it, I was like, shit, I think I had an offer of doing this. Or my agent...
I got asked to do that and I said no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think my house is haunted. But
have you? I know.
So I watched it, and I watched the Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen episode, and it was fantastic. Just to wander around his house was nice. But yeah, do you watch any of those sort of shows where it's like people coming in and finding ghosts in people's houses? Have you ever watched any of them?
Not really. I mean, I just find as you know, I'm very interested in ghosts, love ghosts. But I just find stuff like, oh, we're going to explore with a night vision camera. I'm like, oh, please fuck off. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. The thing is as well, I'd rather listen to things or read things. I don't really like particularly watching things, unless it's like a serious documentary. I don't enjoy watching things, and I don't know why that is. I find it much easier to engage with things written down or listening. I just find watching. And also, you get to the point where, oh, have you seen this? I'm like, no, I haven't. Some people recommend things to me, and I just think, why do you think I'd like what you like?
Fucking hell.
You know? That's nice that you enjoy that. But you talking
Is there anything
to me?
you serially get recommended that you're like, go fuck yourself?
Oh, fucking Below Deck. I'm not interested. Or,
There's one phenomenal series, I would say.
oh, you'll like this. That's what people say. Oh, you'll like this. Oh, you think you know me so well, do you?
I think what you have a problem there with is friendship.
No, but it's never close friends, is it? It's never friends. It's always. For example, male comedians like to do it a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mate, fuck off. Why would... Oh, I mean, ones that are my friends, fine, yeah. But ones that don't really know me and go, oh, you'd like this. I'm like... Or ones that consistently try to talk to you about, say, they want to talk about a serial killer, but they don't want to talk to you about it because you have the interest in it. They want to talk at you because they've recently seen something about it.
Yeah, they'll monologue about it. And often it's because they think that we have guests on the podcast because they never actually listen to two women talking.
Yeah, how many fucking times have we been asked by sort of someone in particular who's like, it's like, no, we don't. If you're such a big fan of this fucking podcast, you'd know we don't have guests.
Yeah.
And also, the key word there is guest. You were invited. Even if you're invited, you don't get to fucking push your way onto something.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. It is morning, it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
This is a two-parter. I should have said part one at the beginning because we thought this was going to be one of those, this will be a romp, we thought. It's historical, but sadly not. It's going to be a two-parter. We're doing Thomas Neill Cream, Dr. Cream.
I absolutely hate that name. It's one of my worst serial killer names.
I hate the name.
Albert Fish and Neill Cream.
Fish cream.
Ugh, gross. They're my two worst serial killer names.
You probably don't remember. There used to be a shop on Bridge Street in Manchester called what was his name? Richard Cream, and it was a very, very well-known sort of designer shop, very small shop. And Richard Cream, the guy that ran it for years. He was about 7'4", really sort of distinctive-looking fella, nice man. He died not so long ago. Very peculiar chap, and all the celebrities used to go and shop in his shop. My enduring memory of him was he had a brooch on once, and I said to him, "Well, that's a nice brooch." And he went, "It was spiders," and he went, "Yes, arachnids," and that's all I remember.
What?
That was my interaction with him, and I often think of him when I see spiders. But there you go.
What a lovely little foray into your memory banks.
Lovely.
Oh, speaking of which, can I read this out? So Rachel and I, obviously we talk most days on WhatsApp, and if one of us has a funny story, we will message the other one and go, "Oh, remind me to tell you about this," when we're next recording. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, because then I forget when we get to do an episode, I'm like, "Oh God, have we got anything to talk about that's a funny story or whatever?" So I will search the word "remind" on my WhatsApp, and Rachel, they are, when you read them back to back, they're absolutely fucking hilarious.
Out of context.
Yes. So, okay, right. Okay, I'm going to rattle through some very quickly. So, okay, remind me to talk to you about the fucking driver who picked me up at 8:30 and decided to try and discuss traffic calming measures in Islington.
Was that you or me?
That was you. Remind me to talk about the couple I'm obsessed with on Facebook. Remind me to talk about this fucking VR headset that Tim has got.
My God.
Remind me to tell you about the utter cunt volunteer at Highgate Cemetery. Remind me to tell you how much I hate Paul Hollywood. Remind me to tell you about Tim calling Phantom of the Opera Phantom like he fucking knows it personally. Remind me to discuss the new Beatles doc. Remind me to mention this, someone just poked me on Facebook. Remind me to tell you about having to sit at the emergency exit on the plane as a grown man refused you. Remind me to talk about the price of a sandwich in Tate Britain.
Oh, well... Some of those things I can't remember, and they must have been sent in a moment of anger.
Shocking, yeah.
But so we took Tim's mum ages ago now to see Phantom of the Opera because she loves her. It was one of those things we'd got it her as a present, but when COVID started, it sort of got postponed and cancelled, and then it eventually came round, and we went to see it. She really enjoyed it, which was the main thing. Phantom of the Opera is an incel, but as we were on the build up to it, obviously arranging to go, Tim was like, "Have you rebooked the Phantom tickets? Remember, it's Phantom on Saturday. Does Mum know what time we're meeting for Phantom?" Oh my God, what are you? Just say the theatre or Phantom of the Opera. Phantom. Oh God, it's awful, isn't it?
I don't know. I think that's quite sort of like it's a weirdly sort of lovey thing to do for Tim to be indulging in.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't like musicals like him.
I remember when someone this is years ago now, and they had started comedy about the same time as me, but they got on telly really quickly and were doing brilliantly, and I saw them in like Soho Theatre, and just no one I knew, they were the only person I knew who's doing telly, and they said something like, "Oh, I've got an audition for Cats on Monday," or "I'm doing Cats on Monday," or something like that, or "I did Cats with them," and I was like, what? Because people in comedy call Cats Does Countdown or 8 out of 10 Cats, but I was just thought, oh, this is fucking weird. I've never got the vibe that they can do musical theatre. So I was like, what, you're in the musical? And they were like, no, 8 out of 10 Cats. And I was like, oh God, I just made a wanker out of myself there.
That's so funny. Yeah, but also, don't talk like everyone knows what you're on about. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, maybe, but also that is the thing that, like, when you're a new comic, if you hear someone older or more established than you calling something, like people call it like Apollo, you would just start doing that. Yeah, I think that's very forgivable.
It goes through me,
Really?
Yeah, like industry speak in any business goes through me.
Yeah, but you like to full name KFC, so I think it's just your...
Yeah, I don't know what it is. There's just something about it. It just makes me go, ugh. I'm sure even if, even jobs that I've had in the past, like, here's one. So when I worked at Tourist Information Centre, they used to have this scheme, makes it sound nefarious, book a bed ahead, right? So this is back in the day before, you could book anything online. And that people would come in and say, oh, hi, I'd like to book a hotel in Windermere tonight. So then you'd have to phone their tourist information. Fucking hell, what a debacle. But because it was called Book a Bed Ahead, that was shortened to a bar. So people would be like, oh, hi, you'd phone like Windermere tourist information, like, hi, have you got time to do a bar? Hate it.
I don't mind that. I don't know why... Yeah, I think it's quite cute.
No.
My uni, the different degrees had different nicknames. So, like, we didn't because my degree ran for about 3 years. But if you're doing a BA in Performing Arts, you'd be a BAPA. If you were doing a BA Media Performance, you're a BAMP. A BATA was the television and radio one. So it'd be like, oh, no. But they'd be like, oh, no, he's a BAPA. Or no, oh, the BAMPs are doing this.
I hate it.
Really?
There's something about it that just... Do you know what it is? It's the familiarity, that the sort of matiness about it. Oh, let's get a KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Please stop it.
People are in a hurry, Rachel. You need to respect that.
Well, I respect the full name, is what I would say. I don't know what it is. It just really goes through me. Thomas Neill Cream, though. How did we get onto that? Old Creamo. He was born the 27th of May 1850 in Glasgow. He was born into quite a poor family, but a family that became rich. So his father, what was his father's name again?
So his father was William Cream and his mother was Mary, and her maiden name was Elder. I've
just realised that Richard Cream, if you shortened his name to the Dick Cream.
Oh God, fuck me.
Dick Cream.
Dick Cream.
Sorry, do carry on. So his father worked in lumber, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he made a lot of money. So they decided... Thomas Cream, he was the oldest of 8 children as well. They moved to Quebec in Canada to continue the lumber business. And they became very wealthy.
But that's when they became wealthy. They weren't when they lived in Scotland. They weren't, and then basically in 1854 they went to Quebec to Wolf's Cove, I think is how you pronounce it. And
that
then,
sounds nice.
Yeah, his father William was working for Gilmore and Company, which was a shipbuilding and lumber business. In the time he starts working for it, he becomes manager, and it becomes the biggest company for lumber and stuff in the province. So he just becomes very wealthy very quickly. So they go from being quite a poor family in Scotland with loads of kids trying to emigrate for a better life to an incredibly wealthy group of expats.
So, eldest of 8 children. I've just reminded myself to tell you this that I told you. First of all, someone sent a very nice tweet that I thought was very nice. Like, it's not often I'm touched, but I was touched by this, right? So, somebody sent a tweet on International Women's Day to the podcast Twitter and said, Happy International Women's Day to the women of all Killa no Filla, including Rachel's sister.
That's nice.
Isn't that nice, that? I thought that was really lovely. So, speaking of children, so as you know, I've got 2 nieces and a nephew. My sister at the moment is in hospital. She's fine. Don't worry. I'm not. No, I am. She's fine. And obviously, her being a single parent, my mum and my dad always been at work. My mum's taken the bulk of looking after the kids because obviously, you know, they're kids. So my sister's in hospital for a good few days. She's coming out on Monday, hopefully. And I said, and I did mean this, I said, oh, do you want me to come up and I'll look after him for a few days? And my mum said, oh my God, Rachel, don't even think about it, because if you did that, it'd end up like Lord of the Flies.
Fucking hell.
So like,
whose head's on the stick?
All right, okay. Exactly like, I went, oh, okay. Because I just think that I can sort of sweep in with my nieces and nephew and then think that I'm great. But the actual reality of it, yeah, I think it would end quite badly. So, yeah, I mean, 3 kids is annoying. 8 kids sounds horrendous to me. 1 kid sounds too much.
Aren't they just, at that point, I don't know. I obviously, speaking as a child-free woman here, that in my head I'm like, well, when you've got 8, there'll be a certain amount where they start looking after each other. You know, like having 1 dog is the same as having 3 dogs.
Yeah, I think maybe the family as well think, we'll have 8, we've got a workforce then. Because
yeah. And also, you know, the child mortality was so ridiculously high.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you don't know if one's going to survive or not, do you? So you may as well have another. So all of his siblings ended up working in lumber. However, Thomas didn't. He was very bookish, very quiet. He was also a very spoilt child, wasn't he?
Yes.
I don't know if the others were spoilt, but he particularly was spoilt. He pretty much got what he wanted. He was sort of doted on a little bit. And because he was quite serious and bookish, he didn't work in lumber. He ended up going to university to become a doctor.
Yeah, because all the other males in the family, all his other brothers were expected to follow into the business, except for him, and they sort of pushed him aside and went, no, he's the academic one, he's the scholar, which actually is a weirdly Welsh thing to do, that, you know, if you've got a farm, everyone would be expected to chip into the farm, except the very bright kid, and that could be a woman or a man, and it would be like, no, they're the scholar, and they sort of don't get asked to do stuff on the farm because they're sort of dedicated to being clever and educated, and that's really valued. So it sounds like a sort of similar thing was going on with his family. I remember ages ago I tried to assist sort of Tim's dad with some sort of manual task, which I think was like putting wood for a fire into a shed. And I said, oh, do you want me to help? And he said, oh, no, please, Rachel, just go over there, go away and be creative. And I thought, oh, I wish more people would say that to me. But it was just pressure,
the fact,
though, isn't it?
Yeah, but also it was the fact that I was probably in the way as well. He may as well have said, please fuck off.
Yeah, go and create some bullshit over there.
Yeah, go do whatever shit it is that you do over there.
There's not loads about him as a kid. Even his biography years later says that his there wasn't much about his childhood. But there's a really interesting phrase in something I read that said that when it came to like manual labour and doing lumbering, he preferred instead to ponder. Like, don't we fucking all?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I can't come into work today. I've really got the desire to ponder.
He is bright though. He's definitely more academic, and he ends up going to Chalmers School and starts teaching Sunday school as well, which again was sort of reserved for brighter people in the community.
So obviously he goes to university to study medicine. His father pays for this, and when he gets there, he's a bit of a tosser, isn't he?
Yes.
So he flaunts his wealth. He buys flamboyant jewellery and clothes. This is one of my favourite things. He gets he gets a carriage to transport himself around campus. Which, how big is the campus? Let's be honest. You know, I just think it's such a. He was described as eccentric, which eccentric often, you know, obviously many times it is applied correctly to people. You know, they're a bit eccentric, but sometimes it does mean a bit of a cunt, doesn't it?
I think a lot of the time eccentric means wealthy person who's a prick. So often when you're like, oh no, this is just a rich person being an arsehole.
Yes.
You rarely hear of like working class eccentrics in like lots of history, even though there's been plenty.
Absolutely. He performed well in class though. He worked hard, he was doing well. His classmates found him annoying though. I mean, I'm finding him annoying and he's been dead for over 100 years. He didn't care what people thought about him. Fair play for that. His area of interest was anaesthetics. And he actually did a thesis on anaesthetics. He did a thesis called The Effects of Chloroform as an anaesthetic since the 1840s. Chloroform, even at the time, was not seen as ideal. It was seen as potentially dangerous, which it was, if used poorly. And in the mid-1800s, there was mixed reviews on it. And once it was discovered to affect heart rhythm, it was sort of very much replaced by nitrous oxide in medical procedures. He passed with flying colours, and at age 25 he graduated as a doctor. Yes.
Now, a bit of background here. So the graduation becomes important in 1876, but at the time, kind of any old fucker could be a doctor if you were posh. So you have this problem here where you've got the Industrial Revolution, and the byproduct of that is that there's lots of like disease, there's lots of people living in dense populations. So the country is particularly sick, and particularly in cities. And also prior to what is the date of it, 1858, doctors are really badly qualified. Like any old sort of college could call someone a doctor. And there was only 3 main places. I think it's like the Royal College of Physicians, Royal College of Surgeons, and the Royal College of something weird that you wouldn't expect, like, apothecaries. Those are the only places that turned out decent doctors, and everywhere else was just banging any old cunt out who had a bone sore. So it meant that even when people were accessing expensive medical care, they weren't actually getting a very good standard of treatment, and certainly no aftercare. So the Medical Act came in 1858, and it meant that, like, no, you have to have a level of training, you have to have a level of education. You can fail to get into these places, you can't just buy your way in, which is when things got sort of tough for him later on in London, which we'll jump to in a second.
In spring 1876, he decides to get himself an insurance policy. And what he does is he sets fire to his lodging house and all his belongings.
Start again. Fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start. It was, unfortunately, it ended up being quite a mild fire. And it was investigated by the insurers. And they were like, something's wrong here. So he only got $300 instead of the thousands of dollars that he thought he was going to get. He meets a woman called Flora Eliza Brooks. Now, he gets her pregnant. And he says to her, well, I don't want this kid. I think you should have an abortion.
He met her because he used to go and stay at her dad's hotel. So yes. The dad was like, oh, that nice doctor is here again. And then all of a sudden, after he'd been visiting there for a few weeks, she's suddenly really sick every morning. And it's like, oh, God. And then they take her to her doctor's because she gets worse and worse. Her doctor's Dr. Filla, and he examined her and he says, you've had a really botched abortion here. And that's when it all comes out. And bearing in mind, doctors weren't very trained then. Imagine how bad it would have to be for them to... Mind you, I expect it was a really common thing that they did see and therefore would be able to diagnose.
Well, they think he was using the wrong... This is horrible. Made me feel a bit queasy. They think he was using sharp implements.
Well, her family find out about this and they turn up at his graduation ceremony. So he's graduating. He's got one of those, like, what do they call, not pestle and mortar boards on. He was eccentric, I'll give him that. Pestle and mortar on his head. And it'd be a lot fucking cheaper than... That is fucked up. You know, you got to wear those gowns and they're like 90 quid to rent.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. It's so much money. Like, and, you know, lots of people's parents cover it and stuff like that. But, like, What if you got... I bet there's a charity that sort of covers that. But still, like, just don't make everything so fucking exclusive if we're going to actually open up universities and make them accessible. Don't make it then like...
this is it. People need to start taking a stand. Just go on in your normal clobber. Take your certificate and give the V's.
Yeah. Yeah, so at the graduation is where he gets confronted with, I believe it was a moose shotgun, is that correct?
Yes. So her father, obviously, he's a wealthy hotelier. He is furious about the abortion because he thinks it's going to bring shame on the family because he's a very proud man. He gets his moose gun, which sounds like something VO5 would make. The VO5 moose gun for extra volume. And they hunt him down. He hunts him like a moose to his graduation. And he holds the gun to Thomas Cream's head and he demands that he marries Flora. Which he says, oh yes, okay, no problem. They have the wedding. And Cream is like, do you know what? I'm not staying the night. I'm busy. And he skips town.
Well, they sort of plan, like the honeymoon that's meant to happen is she wakes up the next day after being married and there is a note on her pillow that basically says, I'll keep in touch. And he's left to go to London in the middle of the night. But also this poor Flora has had like a botched abortion, which I imagine is not easily fixed back then.
No.
So to have this, to go through a termination anyway because of the pressure of society, to have it be botched, to then have the man that you're marrying, oh yeah, no, he wants to marry me because my dad held a moose gun to his head.
Yeah.
And then the very next day he's fucked off and left a letter. Where's Flora's story? Poor old fucking Flora.
It gets worse.
Yeah, it does.
He gets on a boat to England then, as you know. He enrolls in St Thomas's Hospital and he attends surgery lectures and he hopes this will enable him to be certified at the Royal College of Surgeons, which obviously, as you've said, is a prestigious school. However, Flora obviously is still back in Quebec and she's very, very ill. She's not getting better after this horrendous procedure that he's performed on her. But what he does is he decides to... he gets to London and he thinks, hey, it's happening here, isn't it? There's a lot of sex workers. It'd be rude not to. And he starts paying for sex. A lot.
But also... The reason that he sort of went to the UK is because at the time, again, I mean, I found this from a British source, so who fucking knows? The UK was deemed one of the best in the world for medicine because of the innovation that was going on in terms of, operating and things like that, which obviously this is quite a colonial take on it. And ethics, that's the most colonial take on it because I don't think they were acting with many ethics. So that's why he went. He was like, I want to be the best doctor I can, so I've got to go to London for that. But I also think he wanted to shirk his responsibility. Now, he tried to get into the Royal College of Surgeons and he didn't get in. He didn't pass the standard. So he went away and did some more training as a surgeon, bearing in mind he'd been working as a sort of kind of unlicensed surgeon in Canada anyway. And he trained in obstetrics for a bit as well. So he got eventually into the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Edinburgh, and he trained there and got a licence in midwifery, which I just don't want that man anywhere near a womb.
No.
Just something about it, I'm like, get him away, you fucking...
I'm going to be awful.
Go on.
I'm going to say something here. Whenever I see a gynaecologist that's a man, I'm like, what do you want? I don't know what it is. There's just something about me that I just go, explain yourself. Why this?
Do you know what I found out the other day? Are you familiar with the clitoris, Rachel?
Sure.
You know its structure, how it looks. It sort of looks like, I don't even know how it looks, but just like a little, two bits going down the side and a bit at the top.
Like one of those things that falls off trees that you throw in the air and it whirls down.
Yes, it does. This is like little helicopters from Sycamores.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's them. Yeah.
Do you know that wasn't mapped fully, as in we knew what bit was what bit until 1998?
Oh yeah, I think Nina Gilligan's got a bit about this in her show. I think.
I mean, that's like Diana was dead, and we still didn't know what the clitoris was like.
She'd have loved to have found out about that as well.
Robbie had left Take That, and we still didn't know what the clitoris was like. Isn't that absolutely fucking mad?
It's bizarre.
I mean, it's not bizarre because, like, obviously anything to do with having a womb is massively underfunded. Can I tell you about this while I remember? You know, I'm on my 2023, the year of being quite wholesome.
Oh, yeah.
So doing my upholstery, I did a bookmaking course, I've started doing gymnastics, you know, all this stuff. I started doing gymnastics, I've had one lesson, it's the most fun ever. Anyway, so went to do this course on bookmaking, and before the course was a brilliant lecture on sort of medieval bookmaking, because it's kind of exactly the same as how they get made now. And in it, the woman who was giving the lecture was putting various pictures on sort of a projector, and they talk about how, you know, they were physically painted back in the day. The books were physically, why they were sort of great objects of ornament and wealth, and, you know, quite a display, because quite a high level of craftsmanship went into it. Now, there's this one slide that clicks up, and there is what I can only describe as quite obviously a vagina in front of us.
Oh.
You know, when it's sort of like, how do I explain the shape? Well, you know. I mean, like, you're looking down the barrel of a vag. So
right,
it's like a sort of almond shape, if you like.
Right.
So that is on the screen, dark in the middle, going to lighter outside, and then like a wall of flesh, which would be the like labia or whatever, or the outside of the fanny. And so immediately, I'm with my partner, I see in this very quiet class of like 6 of us, his shoulders shaking, laughing in front. And we're at the front as well, so like we're the first people she can see. And so we're both really trying not to look at each other and trying not to laugh. And then she said, "This is the wound of Christ."
Oh.
Well, it's fucking not. And she said, and so she's talking about this and saying that this was in a nun's Bible. And she said, "Do you know what's really beautiful is, like, we can look back and we can see, you can see particular pages that someone liked a lot because of, you know, the mark of the thumb in the corner, or particular bits that they underlined or that they followed a lot with their finger because of how the paint's worn off." And she's like, for instance, this picture of the wound of Christ, we can see that it was very important to the nun because all the paint's missing from the middle of it because she used to kiss her all the time.
Oh, my God.
And so she could be closer to Christ and be like, a lesbian nun is having a good old go on what looks like a fanny in a Bible. And God love her.
Got herself some medieval pornography.
Yeah, but the fact that it was like, come, please address the elephant in the room, that this looks exactly like a vagina and all the paint's missing off the middle of it because she was having a good old go on it.
Nobody said anything?
No, not until afterwards. It was like 2 hours later when I could get over to my friend at the other side, and I went, "Are we going to talk about the nun getting off with a fanny?" And they were like, "I couldn't look at you because she was so obviously laughing."
Fucking hell.
So it was a great lecture though.
Obviously, because of my old job, I could go the rest of my life with never seeing an illuminated manuscript again.
What a fucking niche sentence.
That's not true, actually. I'm just being facetious. I do enjoy. I still do engage with that side of my past.
I'm sorry. Just back to old Neill Cream. He took ages to graduate. Like, he wasn't stupid, but he took much longer to graduate than he should have, and he wasn't completing his courses as quick because he was incredibly distracted by women. At first it was like very rich women who were sort of just kind of socialites, and he'd go to sort of posh, you know, music halls, and well, it was sort of like man about town, acted like he was a bachelor, and everyone assumed that he was, and he'd sort of seduce these posh sort of fainting women, but at the same time he liked being in like ale houses and singing along with all the songs, and then he'd go down to like Lambeth, where a lot of the sex workers would gather, largely for safety, at night. And he became convinced that he was really fascinated by sex workers and attracted to loads of them, so he came convinced that wasn't a him problem. Not that there's a problem to be attracted to a sex worker, but, you know, a thing for him to manage. It was their fault. And he thought that they were like sirens, that they had a malintent, and they were using their powers for evil by drawing good men like him onto the rocks. Right. So that's when they think that he's... I mean, there's loads of speculation here, but they think that's... Do you know what I think's interesting? And we've been... not guilty of it, but something we've talked about in the past is when you go away and do this research, and they talk in particular about murdering sex workers, they're like, well, it must have been because he was really, you know, challenged by the job that they did, or, you know, all that whole like, what's happening here, like slut shamey, oh, they're sirens and they're evil and it's fine to kill them. and they sort of moralise it like there's any great thought gone into it. And I think the thought that goes into it is like, I can kill these women and get away with it, and I hate women.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just misogyny, right?
That's
just
all
like,
it is, yeah.
Just like, you know, the statistics of men that go and kill their partner or ex-partner is like, oh, I hate women and I can kill this woman, she's mine, she's my property. You
don't see a woman as a person. This is what it is. You see them as something less than you.
And I think that, like I say, I think we've definitely done it in that we've been sort of like, definitely maybe earlier on in the podcast, and also repeating contemporary sources and other things, gone, oh, he hated sex workers because of this and that, and, you know, it'll be something to do with the fucking Bible, but actually, it's just a cunt who hates women.
Yeah, I mean, I will stand by myself. I don't think I've ever said that. I think I've always completely understood the reason why a man would hate a sex worker. I don't think, even earlier on, I think the only mistake, you know, not mistake, because language has changed, but probably referred to a sex worker as a prostitute.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gets syphilis. This keeps cropping up in our lives, not like that. Because we did a live show on Saturday, didn't we, last Saturday? I can't believe that's a week ago. Yeah. And we talked about Al Capone. He had syphilis as well.
He did. Is what he sort of like, why he was released from prison at the end. Also, I did a classic KPM thing where I said, oh, this hotel's going to come back, and I never said why it came back at the end. Forgot.
Oh. Is it coming back now?
No.
So, he contracts syphilis. There was no cure for syphilis in Victorian London or Victorian times. Obviously, these symptoms of syphilis, some of the main ones were sores on the genitals, a rash on the torso, the entire body. And it can affect your organs, and it will affect your brain eventually, and it can lead to stroke, dementia, etc. So he's got this rash. People must have noticed, mustn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like coming into medical school. Everyone's like, oh, did you not get the memo?
Incredibly common. I think loads of people would have had it. I think it would be like having, you know, a chickenpox scar. I just think everyone would have had it.
He hated the fact that he got it off a sex worker. He blamed it on them.
Yeah, of course.
This is your fault that I've got this. He became obsessed, as you say, with sex work. This is why they think he didn't get into the Royal College of Surgeons, although let's not blame it on those women as well.
No.
You chose to become obsessed with them, mate. He gets word at this time from Flora, who is incredibly ill. Poor woman.
Yeah.
She sends him a letter saying, look, I'm not well, me. And he jumps at the chance to send her some medicine. He says, listen, you know me, trust me, I'm a doctor. I'm sending you this medicine. You should only take this and only this medicine. She did take the medicine and only that medicine, and she was dead within a few months. It's TB was given as her cause of death, but it's likely he laced her medicine with strychnine. He goes back to his exams and he chooses, I can't say this word.
Obstetrics.
Obstetrics, which people said was strange because he hated women, but I think that's the perfect thing for him to do.
Yeah,
because he hates women so much.
Yeah.
He's accepted to Edinburgh in 1878. After this, he returns to Canada, to London, Ontario. I have been there. Nothing to report. Yeah.
So when he moves to London, he's like massively distracted by banging around and doesn't get into the main place, finally goes to Edinburgh and settles down. It's a bit quieter in Edinburgh. London was a big distraction for him, and that's why he manages to get his qualifications. But he, like you say, moves back to Canada because I think it was too competitive in the United Kingdom, and I also think that he'd shut on his doorstep too much. So he moves back to Canada in 1878 and sets up as a physician and surgeon. And as you say, London, Ontario, at the time though, Rachel, you say nothing to report, incredibly busy.
Ooh.
Big brewery town, big lumber town. So there's a big population, a big working population. And he sets up above a Bennett's clothing store on Dundas Street. And it all is going well for a very short time, for about a year.
Until May 1879, he meets a woman called Catherine Hutchinson Gardner. She was a local chambermaid at a hotel. He'd had sex with her. She became pregnant. She goes to him and says, "You've got me pregnant." And he's like, "Oh, fuck, not again." Now, he suggests she wants an abortion to her. She doesn't want one. However, a few weeks later, this is horrible. Her rotting corpse is found in an outhouse on his property.
Yeah, like literally in his woodshed.
With a bottle of chloroform next to her.
Yeah, the whole body stinks of chloroform.
He's clearly done this.
But you know what he said? He said, oh, she came to me and asked for an abortion. And I said, no, I couldn't possibly do that. But you could buy chloroform, as a member of the public. And he said, well, I did suggest that she could kill herself if she really didn't want to.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, so he's taken to court for that. And the inquest are like, go fuck yourself. Because no, in fact, there was no bottle of chloroform. She just smelt of it. So where's she getting it from? To be in there. And her face was really scratched, as if this chloroform had been forced onto her face, as opposed to she had held it on her own face. And that's when they said, no, that this is a murder. Now, he didn't get indicted for it, but everyone was talking about it.
Her roommate said that Kate had got pregnant by a doctor, Mr. Johnson. And she'd gone to see Cream, and he said, obviously, he'd met her, but as you said, he didn't treat her. The outcome of all of this was homicide by chloroform by some person unknown. Yeah, the person that's there.
Yeah. But so there's just nothing to directly link him to it. So he didn't get indicted for it, but everything's gone. And so it's so badly dented his reputation, rightly so, because even though he's found innocent by the court of public opinion had a different sort of take on it. He has to move completely. No one was going to his surgery anymore, and at that time, like, people, paid, so you were out of business. So he moves to Chicago. And is this where we're going to do part 2?
Yeah, so we're going to come up to part 2 because there's an incident. Of course there is. And we've got Hattie Mac coming up then, haven't we? Next step.
Bum, bum, bum.
We've got an incident. And we come back to London as well.
Oh, good old London town.
He moves back to London town, he does.
Speaking of which, thanks so much to everyone who came to our London show as part of JFL. London, that was very fun. It was cold, but you were lovely. And yeah, it was a gorgeous venue. So thanks everyone for coming along. It was lovely. I forgot, I've got one of our, our limited edition Fizgo's Pop earrings.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one pair of them left to do something with, whether we give them away at a show or maybe I tried to think about doing a raffle for them to raise money for something, but it's like this, you have to apply for a license to do a raffle in the UK because it's gambling, right? So I don't really know what to do with them. Answers on a postcard, please. I'm going to the Glasgow Comedy Festival next week. The late show sold out. The early show's got a handful of tickets left. What else have I got coming up? Machynlleth. Oh, I'm doing a Who You Wearing live at Machynlleth Comedy Festival. That's not quite sold out yet. That's it, really.
28th of March, doing a work in progress at the Frog and Bucket in Manchester. There's only a few tickets left for that. And 2nd of April, I'm doing a work in progress with our friend, I would say, Catherine Mather.
Oh, I love Catherine. She's brilliant.
We're doing she's done some of your tour support, hasn't she?
Mm-hmm, she has, yeah, she's great.
She's my graveyard companion. We potter around graveyards together. In fact, it was me and Catherine that...
the Highgate, yeah.
The Highgate Cemetery. I'll have to ask her what it was that annoyed me there. How can you get annoyed in a fucking graveyard?
They were really sort of bossy and they sort of were trying to not let you go in places and, bossing you around. I remember that you talked about it on here.
Oh, I've talked about it. Great. So that's the 2nd of April, Sunday the 2nd of April, 6 p.m, 2 North Down. Lovely early start. Catherine and I will be trying out some brand new material. I'm not going to the Edinburgh Fringe this year. Oh, God, it feels good to say that. God, that feels good. So,
I am.
So if you want to see me in the next, before, I don't know, just come to work in progress. I don't know. You are going, but more on that soon.
More on that soon. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.